Hi, my name is Chris Edmonds, and I have experienced the pain of addiction. That's very hard for me to say. I was probably 14 when I had my first drink. I drank a lot when I was a young teenager. I skipped school. It was a large part of how I became pregnant at 16. Somehow I thought if I was drunk, I had excuses to do bad things. So it was like, I just get drunk and then I do whatever I want to do. Once I became a mother, my drinking was only occasional, the rare night out, and then usually would drink too much. Approximately 7 years ago or so, I began to realize that I had a problem. We went on vacation and I tried a new drink and I really liked it a lot. And so when we came home, I thought, well, the vacation doesn't have to end. So I started drinking that particular thing at home. And that's when it really started to get to be a daily thing. We went out with friends. They might have a glass of wine or something. I could never have one, never. I knew my youngest daughter was upset about it, but I got angry at her. I mean, what was the big deal? I would go to work with a hangover, but I never missed a day because of it, because I felt like it was my fault and I deserved to be punished. I would go to church with a hangover and feel ashamed sitting there in God's house. I knew God didn't like my behavior. I would promise over and over that I would stop, but I couldn't. It was hard for me. I couldn't have just one drink. I tried switching what I drank. I'd go from, hard liquor to wine to beer, thinking that would make it easier, that would make it better, but nothing worked. I'd get mad at myself. I'd dump the alcohol out and swear I'd never drink again. But within a few days, I would. I beat myself up in the morning for drinking and feeling sick, but then I couldn't wait to get home from work to have a drink. It got so that Richard would get in the shower and I'd sneak in and make myself another drink, or maybe two. I heard several sermons about that one thing you focus on more than you should in your life instead of focus on God. And I always knew what that was for me every time I heard it. A lot of people would call that an idol. Finally, one day, I realized I needed God to help me. I found a book. It was called Heart of Addiction, and I read it cover to cover. God has a lot to say in the Bible about being drunk. So I made a deal with God. I'd try one more time to cut back, and if I couldn't, I would stop. So there I went again, trying to only drink one, trying to make them less strong, etc., etc., etc. It was still hard. One morning, I woke up after having 4 margaritas in a restaurant. I drove home that night by myself. I could have killed somebody. I could have had an accident. What would my grandkids think about me or my children? I'd had enough. So I said, now, God, you win. And it wasn't easy by no means. I confided in my BFF, Dawn Dellinger. She knew I had a problem, of course. I had confided in her many, many times that I needed to quit, and I knew I had a problem. What a champion she was for me. Her encouragement was amazing. Every step of the way. Phone calls, text, hugs, tears, many, many prayers. She read up on how to help a friend with an alcohol problem. She sent me so many emojis. It's been almost 5.5 years, and she still sends me a text on the 21st of the month. I quit drinking September 21st, 2017. When I told my youngest daughter I stopped, I'll never forget that day. She burst into tears, and she's not a crier. I had no idea how much this was upsetting her and what the change in my behavior that she saw when I drank. I joined a women's small group on Sunday nights, way out of my comfort zone. Never would have done that if I'd been drinking. We did a study on hearing the voice of God. How could I be a Christian for 20 years and not know that God wanted me to hear his voice? This was the beginning of a huge spiritual awakening for me. I met 2 women in the group whose husbands were both alcoholics. And I was very nervous and ashamed to share my story, but I ended up doing it. And I gave one of them a copy of the book I had read to give to her husband, and he read it. And he actually got involved with that organization, and I was just blown away. And he's still sober as far as I know. When you hear sin keeps you from becoming close to God, believe it. It's true. I have never been closer to him than I am now. And guess what? 5 years later, I'm co-leading that small ladies group. Crazy, but that's God. And how he blesses us for his obedience. And many other things have happened that have blessed me because of this. There's no way that I would have the fun and the enjoyment that I have in my life with my grandchildren and my husband if I was still drinking. I feel so blessed and grateful to God and to Dawn to have that burden of shame and guilt and anger and depression and anxiety all gone. I used to drink for many reasons. Because I have a lot of physical pain, because I was anxious, sad, fill in the blank, all excuses. And the funny thing is, I don't have anxiety problems anymore. Praise God.